Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Those were the first words he said to her. Not hello. Not can I help you. Not even what are you looking for today. Just that. Like a script he'd memorized. Like a decision made long before she even touched the showroom floor. It was a Tuesday morning in Atlanta. The kind of morning where the sunlight hit the glass just right, casting reflections across the polished cars like spotlight on stage. Inside the dealership, everything gleamed. Metallic silence. Crisp scent of leather and money. And one black woman standing quietly near a matte black luxury SUV, reading the spec sheet like she belonged there. Because she did. But to the man approaching her, tall, white, salt and pepper hair, blazer too tight for the ego it held, she didn't fit the profile. He was already on his Bluetooth earpiece, murmuring to someone. Got a situation near the Genesis display. Might need security. She heard him. She didn't flinch. She'd heard it all before. Just not like this. Not while standing in a building that, unbeknownst to him, she partially owned. Ma'am, he repeated, now louder, his voice slicing the silence. This area is for serious buyers. I'm going to have to ask you to leave unless you're here with someone. She turned slowly, eyes calm, face unreadable. I am here with someone, she said. Oh, he raised an eyebrow, scanning behind her. Where? She looked him dead in the eyes. Me. There was a pause. Not the kind that invites clarification. The kind that warns. But he didn't catch it. He smirked. Sure. I get it. Just browsing, huh? Instagram likes over horsepower, right? The air shifted. Not loud. Just tighter. A young woman a few feet away, white, early 20s, mid-spin on a TikTok video, stopped dancing. She lowered her phone, turned, and watched. That was the moment it began. The unraveling. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Vanessa. She didn't blink. She didn't explain. She just stepped closer to the SUV, placed her hand gently on the hood, and said, Does this model come in silent black? He stared at her, confused. She smiled. The moment stretched. Then she added, quieter now, but sharper than any insult. You're going to want to remember this conversation. He scoffed. Ma'am, please don't make this more difficult than it has to be. But she already knew. It wasn't going to be difficult. Not for her. Not once the next call came in. Not once the signatures cleared. Not once her name, and her power, landed where they always do. On top, Vanessa Doyle stepped into the dealership at exactly 10:43 a.m. No entourage. No heels clicking like status symbols. No logo purse swinging at her side. Just crisp white jeans, a tucked-in chambray shirt, and loafers the color of quiet thunder. Hair in a high bun. No earrings. No makeup. Only presence. And that was enough. She didn't walk in like she had something to prove. She walked in like she had nothing to lose. Which, in a way, was worse for them. Because when someone like her walks in without a shield of status, they get careless. The showroom was pristine. Glass panels glinting like trophies. Painted metal dreams parked side by side. A salesman adjusted his collar as he saw her approach the Genesis GV80 display, a car that whispered wealth without screaming it. He didn't see power. He saw a problem. She asked no questions. Didn't wave anyone over. She took out her phone, opened a note, and quietly started comparing engine specs. She wasn't here to impress. She was here to observe. 2 weeks ago, she'd received an anonymous email. Subject line. Check how your brand treats women who look like you. Attached, a video. A young black couple being ignored at this exact location. No greetings. No test drives. Just side eyes and closed doors. Vanessa had watched that clip 3 times. Not out of disbelief. Out of familiarity. This morning was never just about the SUV. It was a test, and they were already failing. Behind the receptionist's desk, 2 men leaned in and whispered. One pointed in her direction. The other narrowed his eyes like he was solving a puzzle he didn't like. She caught it all in the reflection of the glass wall. Still she stayed. Calm. Intentional. There were no cameras on her. Not yet. But every step was a statement. This is how I dress when I know I own the room. This is how I walk when I've already bought the silence. This is how I listen when people reveal themselves before I speak. From across the showroom, a man in a gray polo approached slowly. Name tag said Rick. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Can I help you with something? He asked. eyes already assuming no. I'm interested in the GV80, she said, her voice even. He glanced at her outfit, then the car, then back at her. You're looking for used? No, well, he said, tilting his head. This model's a bit high range. We can walk over to the pre-owned side if you like. She looked at him, not angry, just awake. No, she said. I'm exactly where I need to be. He smiled, but it cracked a little at the edges. If you're not here for a scheduled appointment, we usually need some sort of pre-approval before we allow. She cut him off with silence. Not words, just stillness. The kind of stillness that makes men like Rick double-check their assumptions. But he didn't. He doubled down. I'll get someone to escort you if you're just browsing, he added, already motioning behind him. Vanessa looked at her phone. Right on time. She tapped once. Across town, a notification blinked on a screen marked Legal Protocol Z, activated. She turned to Rick, eyes steady. This is going to be educational, she said softly. He laughed, but he wouldn't be laughing long. Rick didn't walk, he strode. That corporate walk. Fast enough to signal authority, slow enough to show he didn't feel threatened. He rounded the corner of the reception desk, lowered his voice, and nodded toward Vanessa. She says she's looking at the GV80. He whispered to another salesman in a navy blazer. The other man, Caucasian, mid-30s, neatly shaved with a clipboard tucked under his arm, didn't look surprised. Just annoyed. Check if she's pre-qualified, he muttered. No need wasting anyone's time. Rick smirked, then gestured discreetly to the front desk assistant. Run a soft screen. No credit hit. Just name match and verification. The girl hesitated. She hasn't even given us her name. Rick shrugged. She'll slip eventually. None of them noticed the slim black phone on the desk vibrating silently. It wasn't hers. It belonged to a young woman in sweats and a hoodie, scrolling TikTok 2 minutes ago, now still as stone. She was already filming. Quietly. Discreetly. And she had caught everything. Vanessa, across the room, leaned slightly on the car door, inspecting the interior through the glass. Her fingers trailed along the edge of the window. Not rushed. Not irritated. Just watching. Like a storm cloud that hadn't decided which direction to move yet. Rick returned, now accompanied by the man in the navy blazer. Hey there, the second man started. I'm Tom. One of the sales leads here. Vanessa turned. His smile was more polished, more practiced, but the undertone was the same. So, you're looking at the GV80? That's a pretty serious machine. It is, she replied. Tom glanced down at her shoes, then back up. And what sort of budget are you working with today? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked, do you ask every customer that before you offer them a test drive? Tom blinked. Rick stepped in. Ma'am, we just want to make sure we're matching you with something realistic. That word landed hard. Realistic. Like her presence wasn't. Like the idea of a black woman in denim dropping $80,000 was something out of fiction. Vanessa took a slow breath. So what you're saying is, what we're saying, Tom interrupted quickly, is that some of our vehicles require pre-screening. For safety, for insurance, for everyone's benefit. He smiled again. She didn't. From the corner of the showroom, the girl in the hoodie kept filming. Her friend beside her whispered, this is gonna blow up. Rick leaned slightly forward. If you'd like to schedule something later in the week, maybe with a financial advisor present, we'd be happy to help. There it was. The polite refusal wrapped in concern. Vanessa didn't budge. You're assuming I need help. Tom gave a short laugh. No, of course not. It's just, you know how these policies are. Behind him, the receptionist's computer chimed. She looked up, brows raised. Tom noticed. What is it? She hesitated. Nothing. Because the soft screen had just matched a high-profile account. An account flagged with an internal tag. Executive access, priority shareholder. She didn't say a word. Not yet. Vanessa locked eyes with Rick. What's your name again? She asked. He folded his arms. Why? Because when this moment ends, she said quietly, I want to make sure the paperwork includes the right details. Tom chuckled nervously. No need to get dramatic. We just have to be careful. You know, fraud, scammers, bad actors. It's not personal. She smiled faintly. It never is, until it is. Then she stepped away from the car and walked, not toward the door, but toward the front counter. 3 more heads turned. The tide had started to shift. But the storm? It was just getting started. Vanessa reached the counter like she was walking into a courtroom. Every step, measured. Every breath, timed. Rick followed half a pace behind, posture stiff, hands in his pockets like he was holding on to control. Tom lingered near the SUV, pretending to recheck something on his tablet, but his eyes stayed locked on her back. At the front, the receptionist glanced up, eyes flicking between the screen and the woman approaching. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice a little softer this time. Vanessa didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a slim black wallet. From it, she took a single business card, matte, weighty, no title printed. Just a name, Vanessa Doyle, and a small embossed logo in the corner, Doyle Automotive Group. She didn't hand it over. She set it down gently on the counter, then waited. The receptionist looked at the card, then back at her, then at her monitor. There was a beat, and another. Then, "Ma'am, she stammered. "You said your name was Doyle." Rick leaned in, catching the shift. "Problem." Vanessa looked at the young woman behind the counter. Eyes calm, voice level. "No problem," she said. "Unless someone here is making one." Rick's jaw clenched. "We're just doing our due diligence." "Is that what you call this?" she asked, not accusing, just curious. He puffed up. "Look, if you're not here to buy today, we do have a lot of serious buyers coming in." "Define serious," she cut in, still soft. "Shirts with collars, skin tones lighter than mine." The question didn't need an answer. The silence screamed it. Across the showroom, the girl in the hoodie was still recording. Her phone's lens caught everything. The pause, the posture, the way Rick shifted his weight like the floor had turned unstable. Vanessa didn't break eye contact. She didn't lecture. She didn't plead. She just stood there, letting the weight of every misstep settle into the space. "I've been in showrooms like this before," she said calmly. "At 27, when I bought my first dealership. At 32, when I acquired 3 more. And now at 44, standing in one I partly own, being asked if I'm pre-qualified." Rick blinked. Tom stepped closer again, face suddenly unsure. "You're saying you own part of?" "I'm not saying anything yet," Vanessa replied. "Because when people show you who they are, you don't need to speak. You just need to take notes." Behind her, another employee stepped into the lobby. A junior tech, Latino, early 20s, carrying keys and paperwork. He froze mid-step, sensing tension. Vanessa turned slightly toward him. "What's your name?" she asked, gentle. He hesitated. Mateo." She nodded once. "Nice to meet you, Mateo." He looked between her, Rick, and the receptionist, then toward the phone that was very clearly recording from behind the accessory rack. "This happening a lot?" he asked no one in particular. Vanessa didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her stillness was the answer. Rick scoffed, trying to reclaim ground. "We have protocols for a reason. Some people try to fake credentials, use stolen cards." Vanessa raised a hand. "Just one. Small. Calm. Final. No more." Rick stopped mid-sentence. "I don't need to defend myself in a building I pay taxes on," she said, quieter now. "And I don't need permission to exist near something I can buy in cash." She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. One tap. A voice answered immediately. "Carla here. Ready." Vanessa didn't look away from Rick when she spoke. "Activate internal verification. Protocol Z." "Yes, ma'am. Executing now." Rick frowned. "Internal what?" Vanessa's voice didn't rise, but it cut sharper than anything else said that day. "You should have greeted me like a client. You chose to treat me like a threat." Then she stepped back, folded her arms, and waited. Not for approval, not for forgiveness, for the fallout. And it was coming fast. "Yo, are you filming this?" The girl in the hoodie didn't answer. She just nodded. Her screen lit up with the live feed. 42 viewers and climbing. Caption: "She asked about a car. They asked her to leave. Hashtag Black CEO. Hashtag car drama. Hashtag Atlanta showroom." Her friend, a guy in cargo shorts and a Braves cap, leaned in. This about to go viral. He wasn't wrong. Across the room, Mateo, the junior tech, still hadn't moved. His hands gripped a set of keys, but his eyes stayed locked on Vanessa. Rick, meanwhile, was growing restless. His voice lowered, but the heat behind it did not. "Ma'am, you're creating a scene." Vanessa didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The room was shifting for her. "Creating," she echoed. "You created this the second you decided what I could afford based on what I wore." Tom cleared his throat. "Look, we're sorry if you felt disrespected." But nothing," said a voice from the side. Everyone turned. It was the girl from TikTok. She stepped forward now, phone still in hand, but no longer hiding it. I've been standing here for 5 minutes watching you all treat her like she doesn't belong. And she hasn't raised her voice once. Rick tried to wave her off. Ma'am, please. No, she snapped. Don't ma'am me now. You ignored her. You tried to escort her out. And now you're embarrassed because people are watching. Tom looked nervous. This doesn't concern you. She laughed. That's the problem. It does. Vanessa turned slightly, meeting the girl's eyes. What's your name? She asked, quiet. Jasmine, she replied. I was just here looking at a sedan. Now I'm here for this. Rick stepped toward the counter. You can't record in here. This is private property. Cool, Jasmine said. Then I'll stand just outside and keep going. You want the internet to decide. Behind her, her phone buzzed. New comment. What dealership is this? Name and city, please. The tide was rising. Mateo finally stepped forward. Can I say something? He asked carefully. Rick rolled his eyes. You're not involved. Vanessa looked at him. He just involved himself. Mateo swallowed. She's not lying. I saw her name in the system once. Last week. Doyle Automotive. I remember because I thought it was weird. That's the parent company, right? Silence. Tom blinked. Rick didn't speak. Jasmine's camera zoomed slightly. Mateo continued, voice firmer now. She wasn't listed as a client. She was listed as executive-level access. Rick spun. You're mistaken. No, I'm not, Mateo said. You just didn't check. From behind the counter, the receptionist's monitor chimed again. This time, she didn't try to hide it. She looked up, pale. The name Doyle just triggered an internal notification. Tom turned. What kind of notification? She hesitated. Full override. Priority shareholder. Legal alert pinged. Sir, it's real. Jasmine gasped, spinning the phone toward Vanessa. Wait, you own this place. Rick stuttered. This is a misunderstanding. She never said. Vanessa finally stepped forward. I didn't need to say, she said, voice even. You made your choice before I opened my mouth. She turned toward Jasmine. Thank you for recording. Jasmine nodded, wide-eyed. No, thank you. This is wild. Rick was now visibly sweating. Tom looked like he wanted to disappear. Mateo stood a little taller. In the room? It was no longer theirs. It belonged to her now. And soon, the world would know it too. The glass office door slammed open. Everyone turned. A new man entered, taller, broader, mid-40s, buzz-cut, chest puffed with corporate pride. A name badge gleamed against his charcoal blazer. Dan Crawford, general manager. He wasn't smiling. What's going on here? He barked, scanning the room. Rick rushed to him like a lifeline. We've got a disturbance. A woman refusing to leave, claiming she's not claiming. Mateo interrupted, voice louder than before. She is. Dan looked at the young tech like he was a stain. Who asked you? Jasmine raised her phone again. Oh, please keep going, she said, sarcasm thick. They love when managers show up late and loud. Dan ignored her. Turned to Vanessa. Ma'am, unless you're a scheduled buyer or accompanied by a sales rep, I'm going to have to ask you to vacate the showroom. You're escalating tension, and we have clients arriving. Vanessa didn't blink. Tension? She asked. Dan stepped closer. This isn't personal, but if you're not buying today, you need to go. Rick added. She's been filming, talking to staff, and interfering with protocol. Mateo scoffed. You mean exposing protocol? Tom took a cautious step back, unsure which direction to support now. Behind them, the receptionist stood frozen, still staring at the override alert blinking on her screen. Dan glanced at her. Close that window. We'll handle it offline. She didn't move. Vanessa exhaled slow. Measured. Then, calmly, she said, You're dismissing me again, despite the fact that my company's name is printed on your payroll checks? Dan rolled his eyes. I don't care who you think you are. You're interrupting my floor. Vanessa tilted her head, ever so slightly. Good. Then remember this moment. Jasmine couldn't hold it in. Oh my God, she is the owner. Rick turned to Dan, voice low, panicked. She came up on the system as executive priority. Mateo recognized the name. The receptionist saw the override. Sir, this might be legit. Dan brushed it off. Anyone can fake a business card and drop a name. I don't deal in rumors. I deal in sales. He pointed at the door. You're done here. The words echoed. But they didn't land. Because in the far corner of the showroom, 2 more customers had started filming. One of them, a middle-aged black man in a tailored suit, stepped forward. Hold on, he said, voice calm but commanding. You're rejecting her. without even verifying who she is? Dan snapped. Sir, this doesn't concern. It does now, the man replied. Because I'm a client. I've bought 2 cars from this branch. But what I just watched? Not again. Vanessa looked at him. Nodded once. Thank you. Dan turned back to her, flustered. Security's being called. Perfect, she said. He frowned. Let them explain to corporate legal why a verified owner was removed from her own property. Dan laughed. A dry, defensive sound. This is ridiculous. But his voice didn't carry like before. Jasmine's phone crossed 800 live viewers. Comments were flying. Is this for real? Name and address of dealership, please. She said she OWNS at OMG. White men shaking Aaron. Vanessa turned toward the counter. She tapped her phone. Carla, she said quietly. We've escalated to verbal removal. Proceed with phase 2. On the other end, her assistant replied without hesitation. Already in motion, ma'am. HR and compliance are now looped. Video evidence timestamped. The override flag has been logged for audit. Dan was losing color. Rick looked like he was shrinking. Mateo was grinning now, ever so slightly. Then Vanessa said it. Not loud, but with the weight of a gavel. Mr. Crawford, you just tried to evict your superior. On camera. With witnesses. He opened his mouth. But nothing came out. The air in the showroom wasn't charged anymore. It was split. Sides were being chosen. And the balance was shifting. Fast. Dan had had enough. The shame rising in his chest wasn't guilt. It was ego in freefall. He wasn't used to being questioned. Definitely not by a woman who hadn't even booked an appointment. He stepped in front of Vanessa now. Too close. Posture rigid. You think some buzzwords and phone calls scare me? He hissed. This is a business. My floor. You walked in here unannounced, created a scene, and now you're pretending to be someone you're not. Rick hovered nearby, eyes darting between Vanessa and the front door, like he was considering making a run for it. Tom stayed silent. Jasmine whispered into her live, Yo, he's really going to do it. Vanessa didn't flinch. Dan snapped his fingers toward the side of the showroom. Security. Now. A uniformed guard appeared from the hallway. Young, black, no older than 25. Eyes unsure. Dan pointed at Vanessa. Escort this woman out. Immediately, the security guard froze. Vanessa turned to him. What's your name? She asked gently. Jay, he said, barely audible. Jay, she continued. I suggest you think carefully about your next move. Because you're being asked to remove someone who has more ownership stake in this property than the man giving the order. Jay looked at Dan. Dan didn't back down. She's lying. You work for me, not her. Get her out of here. Jay stepped forward. Slowly. Then stopped. Do you have verification she doesn't belong here? He asked, surprising even himself. Dan's voice cracked. She's disrupting operations. She's been calm the entire time. Jasmine interjected. You're the one yelling. The man in the tailored suit from earlier folded his arms. So what happens if he touches her? What's the legal plan here? Dan barked. She's trespassing. At that exact moment, Carla's voice came through Vanessa's AirPods, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Ma'am, phase 2 confirmed. Internal review of this location's staff conduct has begun. I've also flagged the live footage, already circulating. Vanessa met Dan's eyes. I warned you, she said softly. Dan took one last, reckless step forward, and shoved her. It wasn't violent, not enough to injure, just enough to be undeniable. Enough to push her a step back. Enough to make Mateo drop the keys in his hand. Enough to make Jasmine gasp, live viewers spiking past 1,200. Enough for Jay to immediately step between them, arms outstretched. Sir, that's enough. Dan froze. But the damage was done. Vanessa straightened her shirt. Didn't touch her hair. Didn't say a word. Not yet. Jasmine's phone captured the silence like a wound. Then Vanessa spoke, clear, cold, like a verdict. You just laid hands on the majority shareholder of Doyle Automotive Group. Dan stammered. You can't prove. The receptionist's voice cut in. I can. All heads turned. She stood now, holding a printout, still trembling, but audible. This system just confirmed her ownership status. Tied directly to our internal registry. This is real. Dan looked at her like she'd committed betrayal. You printed that. I sent it to corporate, she replied. This is above you now. Jay pulled out his radio. I need backup. Manager just put hands on a corporate stakeholder. We need legal here now. The room imploded in murmurs. Someone near the door muttered. Oh, he's done. Another man whispered. Just saw this on TikTok. It's already blowing up. Dan stood frozen. Rick backed away slowly. Mateo stepped to Vanessa's side. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded. I've been shoved before, but never in my own building. And that one line, echoed harder than any shove could. It wasn't just a moment of disrespect. It was a public unraveling of everything they thought they controlled. And they had no idea. The real reckoning hadn't even started yet. Vanessa didn't storm out. She didn't scream. She just straightened her collar, took a breath, and tapped her phone again. Carla, she said evenly. Initiate Protocol Z, full sweep. Legal, HR, PR, I want them live within the next 10. Carla's voice responded instantly. Understood. Compliance is already observing. Security footage is syncing now. Legal will join in 3. The moment felt small. Just a phone call. Just a calm woman speaking commands. But to everyone in the room, it felt seismic. Dan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Rick moved backward, quietly taking off his name tag. Mateo stood taller, eyes fixed on Vanessa like she had just transformed into someone else entirely. And in many ways, she had. Because now, the power wasn't hidden. It was operational. Vanessa turned toward the receptionist. Send a copy of that registry match to corporate audit and forward it to Carla's inbox. Market incident, Atlanta North. The girl didn't hesitate. Already done. Jasmine's live stream was blowing up. 3,500 viewers. One comment read, Y'all, she just activated something called Protocol Z. Another, this is like watching a CEO movie in real time, and they weren't wrong. Vanessa stepped into the center of the showroom like it was her boardroom. Let me make this clear, she said. Every moment from the time I walked in has been recorded. Not just by your own surveillance, but by live observers, timestamps, system logs, and multiple witnesses. Dan tried to salvage his crumbling authority. You can't do this without due process. I am due process, she replied. Your contracts are under my umbrella. Your employment is governed by policies I approved. Rick muttered. How the hell did we not know she was coming? Vanessa turned to him slowly. Because I wanted to see what happened when I wasn't expected. Silence. Then Jay, the security guard, tapped his radio. Copy. Legal's confirmed. They're on Zoom in 90 seconds. Dan ran a hand through his hair. This is ridiculous. But his voice had no spine now. No, wait. It crumbled before it reached anyone's ears. Mateo stepped closer to Vanessa. What can I do? She looked at him and smiled for the first time all morning. Just keep being exactly who you are. Behind them, 2 more employees peeked out from a hallway, curious, cautious. Vanessa gestured toward the staff lounge. Anyone who feels like they've been forced to follow bad policy, you're welcome to step forward. We're starting a cultural audit. Now, one woman stepped out. Then another. Then 2 men. The room was breaking open. Truth pouring in from every corner. Dan, cornered, tried one last desperate ploy. You're not even on the schedule. This was an ambush. Vanessa turned. It was an inspection, she corrected. Your behavior failed in under 5 minutes. Jay looked up. Legal is live, ma'am. Patching them through. A screen behind the reception desk flickered on. Corporate. 3 faces. Vanessa nodded at them. Gentlemen, she said, you've seen the footage? One replied, yes. And we're already in motion. The corporate hammer had dropped. But Vanessa wasn't done. She walked to the reception counter, picked up the clipboard Tom had been holding earlier, and flipped it open. Do you know what this is? She asked. No one answered. It's a floor plan. She pointed to a line in ink at the bottom. Next quarter, this location was scheduled for renovation. We were going to upgrade the East Wing, add a new EV section. She looked at Dan. But now, I think we'll be upgrading leadership first. Gasps. Jasmine whispered, yo. She's cleaning house on the spot. Vanessa turned, her voice steady. HR will contact everyone individually. Those who stood by and watched, expect a review. Those who stepped forward, expect change. She wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. Justice was no longer a concept. It was walking, talking, executing, in real time. The legal team's faces stared out from the large screen. 3 suits. 2 legal advisors. 1 regional compliance officer, jaw clenched, already typing. Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to anymore. The entire room had become a witness box. She turned slowly, facing the sea of staff and customers who now stood like statues, phones in hand, mouths open, waiting. You want the truth? She began, voice calm but searing. Then listen closely. I didn't come here for a car. She walked toward the center of the floor, heels echoing with every step like courtroom gavels. I came to see what happened when a black woman walks in without a title, without an assistant, without warning. Dan shifted uncomfortably. Rick looked like he wanted to disappear. Jasmine mouthed, "Oh my God," to her phone. "I came as a test," Vanessa continued. "And you failed." She gestured toward the SUV she'd been admiring earlier, the matte black GV80. "Do you know why I picked that car?" No one answered. She waited a beat. "Because that's the model our regional VPs receive as part of their bonus package. Company issued." She turned back to the screen. "Legal, please confirm for the room my current title and equity status." The man in the center of the call, silver-haired, solemn, looked directly at the camera. Vanessa Doyle is the majority shareholder of Doyle Automotive Group. She holds executive voting power and final authority on all personnel decisions across 12 dealerships, including this one. Gasps rippled. Dan took a full step back. His voice cracked. "You're Doyle?" She nodded. "That's right. Why didn't you say so when you walked in?" "I was waiting," she replied, "to see how long it would take for you to treat me like I belonged here." The air was lead now, heavy with regret, dense with realization. Rick's voice shook. We didn't know. We weren't informed." Vanessa looked at him. "You were informed the moment I walked through the door," she said. "You just didn't listen." She pointed to the card she'd set on the counter earlier, still sitting untouched. "No one even looked at that. You were too busy judging the denim shirt and the absence of a Louis Vuitton bag." Tom stepped forward, hesitant. "Ma'am, I didn't mean—" She stopped him with a glance. "You meant exactly what you said. And how you said it." Jasmine's live chat exploded. "This is so satisfying, OMG, she said. I am the process, Rick. Dan. Pack. IT. Up." Vanessa turned back to the screen. "Legal. How long until our emergency HR review team is on site?" 30 minutes, the compliance officer replied, "and they're bringing contracts." Dan's voice, now almost pleading. "Vanessa, ma'am, please, this is all a misunderstanding." She raised an eyebrow. "You called security. You ordered me removed. You put hands on me. That's not misunderstanding. That's misconduct." Rick stuttered. "If we had just known who you were," she cut him off. "That's the point." Her voice dropped a decibel, quieter now, but sharper. "You don't get to treat people like trash and then backpedal when they turn out to be powerful." She took a slow step forward, eyes locked on Dan. "You don't get to police someone's presence, then beg for forgiveness when they sign your checks." Dan looked shattered. No defense left. No shield to hide behind. Vanessa exhaled. Then, almost gently, she said, "This wasn't about me proving anything." She gestured to Jasmine. To her. To Mateo. To him. To every single person who's walked into this place and felt less than because they didn't fit your idea of what success should look like. She paused. "Let it sink. I'm not here for revenge. But I am here for accountability." And with that, the room went still. For a second, no one moved. No one breathed. Because everyone now knew. This wasn't a moment. It was a reckoning. And her name? Was etched on the building. Dan's mouth moved. But the words didn't come. There was nothing left to say. Not that would change anything. Rick had retreated behind a glass display, trying to look busy, pretending the floor plan binder needed urgent organizing. Tom stood frozen in place, clipboard still in hand, eyes darting between the exit and the growing crowd now gathered near the accessory wall. Even the receptionist, who had once pretended not to see, now couldn't look away. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, unsure if she was supposed to keep working or start packing. Vanessa didn't move. She stood still, in the center of it all, like gravity had shifted and made her the axis. Legal's voice returned on the screen. "Ms. Doyle, would you like to initiate immediate administrative suspension or allow internal mediation to review?" She didn't blink. "We'll start with suspension. Effective immediately." Rick, Dan, and Tom. All three names landed like hammers. Dan stammered. "You can't do this right now." "I just did," Vanessa replied. "You'll receive instructions from legal in your inbox within the hour. Your access badges will deactivate at 5 p.m. Tom dropped his clipboard. The clatter broke the silence. Rick whispered, "Oh my God." Jasmine's livestream now hit 6,200 viewers. The chat was melting. Instant suspension, She just ended them in 3 sentences. Dan, Tom, Rick equals done LMAO. Queen Vanessa for president. Mateo looked like he was holding back tears, not from fear, but pride. He stepped closer to Vanessa, voice low. Ma'am, I've been working here 3 years. I've seen this happen to others. Not this big, but enough. She turned to him, nodded once. You spoke up, and that matters. Dan tried one final Hail Mary. This isn't fair. I've put years into this company, and in 3 minutes, Vanessa said coldly. You almost put a stain on it we couldn't scrub clean. Her eyes didn't flinch. And you didn't do it because you lacked training or policy. You did it because of how I look. Dan said nothing. The silence was louder than any scream. From the back, the hallway door creaked open. A line of junior staff emerged, detailers, admin interns, delivery drivers. People who usually disappeared into background noise. Not today. They stood along the wall, arms crossed or clasped in front of them, watching justice unfold. Vanessa nodded toward them. HR will be reaching out to each of you. If you've experienced discrimination, bias, retaliation, we want to hear it. No more pretending this place was fine. A woman in a service vest, Latina, late 40s, teared up quietly. She whispered, about time. Vanessa walked toward the front desk, slow, deliberate. As she passed Jasmine, she said quietly, You're still recording? Jasmine nodded fast. Good. She turned to the camera. To every black woman who's ever been questioned, doubted, followed, talked over, dismissed, this is for you. Then she looked around the showroom. This place will change. Not just logos and slogans. Culture. From the root. Jay, the security guard, nodded slowly. Ma'am, he said, if I ever get to work for someone like you full-time, sign me up. She smiled, but it didn't soften the moment. It sharpened it. This wasn't about warmth. This was about wake up. Dan backed toward the door. Rick followed. Tom didn't even grab his clipboard. He just left. The 3 men, once loud, smug, untouchable, now exited like shadows. And in their place? Clarity. Vanessa turned to the receptionist. What's your name? The girl swallowed. Hannah. Hannah. Vanessa said. You froze earlier. That's okay. Fear is human. But silence is a choice. Hannah nodded slowly. I won't be silent again. Good. Vanessa stepped back to the SUV, ran a hand across the hood, then looked up, just once more. It's not about the car. Pause. It never was. And just like that, she walked out. But her presence didn't. It stayed. In the air, in the screen, in every corner of the building that once thought she didn't belong. The next morning, the dealership's front doors opened at 9 a.m. By 9:07, the locks were changed. By 9:13, the Doyle Automotive HR van pulled into the lot. And by 9:26, the first official terminations were signed. Not in anger, not in haste, but in ink thick with clarity. Vanessa didn't arrive in a limousine. She arrived in silence. Black slacks, black blouse, no jewelry, just a silver fountain pen clipped to her pocket, the only weapon she needed. She stepped inside the showroom and didn't speak to the new receptionist, the new sales manager, or the new assistant who stood waiting. Not yet. First, she walked to the conference room. Inside, 5 employees sat. Those who had spoken up the day before. Mateo, Jasmine, Jay, Hannah, and the service tech in the vest, Maria. They stood when she entered. Vanessa lifted her hand. No titles in this room, she said. Just truth. She pulled out a chair. Saturday. Then placed 5 manila envelopes on the table, sliding one to each of them. Inside are offers, she said. Some of you will be promoted. Some of you will receive leadership training on company time. One of you will be offered regional oversight. Eyes widened. Mateo whispered, Ma'am, this is too much. Vanessa smiled, small, but unshakable. No, this is just enough. She looked around the table. You spoke when it was dangerous. You moved when it was easier to stay still. That's not just loyalty. That's integrity. And this company needs more of it. Jasmine held the envelope like it might dissolve. No one's ever given me a seat at the table. Vanessa leaned forward. Then pull it closer. Outside the room, the showroom was quiet. A stillness born not of fear, but transformation. Rick was gone. Dan too. Tom had resigned before the ink dried. Their names were being wiped from company portals, emails rerouted, job postings rewritten. But this wasn't a purge. It was a reset. Vanessa stood. Today we don't just replace people. We replace patterns. We don't promote silence. We reward courage. Jay asked quietly, will they try to come back? They can reapply, Vanessa said, after they've completed 6 months of unconscious bias training, and submit a letter explaining why they think they deserve to rejoin. No one argued. They knew. This wasn't revenge. This was reform. By 10:15, a company-wide email had gone out. Subject, change is not coming. It's here. Written by Vanessa herself. Excerpt, we cannot build equity if we operate on assumption. We cannot welcome diversity if we punish presence. Going forward, every showroom, every manager, every team will be reviewed, not just on sales, but on culture. Because culture is currency, and trust is the only brand we cannot afford to lose. By noon, the story had hit LinkedIn. By 3 p.m., it was on Forbes. Headline, Black CEO reclaims power in her showroom. Vanessa didn't smile for the cameras. She didn't give a long speech. She posted one sentence to her private account. They thought I was here to browse. I was here to rebuild. And that post alone hit 1.2 million views by midnight. A week later, the showroom gleamed under a new banner. Same building, same address. But something fundamental had shifted, something unspoken, but undeniable. Customers walked in and weren't sized up. Voices were heard, not filtered. And in the center of the wall, where once hung glossy marketing photos, now stood a single framed quote. Don't underestimate someone just because they didn't announce who they are. Vanessa hadn't returned for photo shoots. She didn't need her face on brochures. She was done proving. But word spread anyway. Word about that day. About the woman in white jeans who'd been asked to leave, and instead left with the keys. About the 3 men who forgot that power doesn't always come in suits and ties, but sometimes in steady breath and silence. About the bystanders who decided to stop being bystanders. And about a company that learned, the hard way, what dignity actually looks like. Vanessa sat in her home office one evening, reading a handwritten note from a woman she'd never met. It said, I saw the video. I've walked into rooms like that. I've walked out quiet, hurt. You walked out louder without ever raising your voice. Thank you. I walked back in. Vanessa folded the letter slowly, pressed it flat, then whispered, good. Because that was the point. Not the suspension, not the press, not the power play. It was to remind them, and us, that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it wears loafers. Sometimes it carries a pen. Sometimes it says nothing at all, until the silence becomes louder than the insult. So next time someone looks at a black woman and sees browsing, remember, she might just be writing policy, or signing checks, or owning the building. Because dignity doesn't ask permission. It just arrives, and leaves the door open for the next one to walk through.